So greetings, everyone. I'm Diane Williams of the Source of Synergy Foundation and a member of the Board of Advisors of Humanitysteam. And I'd like to welcome you to this program on consciousness and climate change that is part of Humanitysteam's Global Oneness Summit. So we are very happy to have with us four extraordinary souls, Dr. Deepak Chopra, Drs. James J. Hurtak and Desiree Hurtak, and Alan Seinfeld, each of whom brings fresh perspectives and visions on how to consciously reverse climate change. And Deepak did a wonderful series that is on Chopra Well YouTube channel on this topic that was one of the inspirations to put together this program. So I'd like to encourage all of you to check it out. Just Google consciously reversing climate change and you'll find it. So I know we all wish to send our deep appreciation to everyone tuning in. Thank you so much for making the choice to be with us today. I think we all know that one of the most important choices we can make during these precarious times is to address climate change in a timely fashion, as this decade will, in large part, determine the future of our planet and its inhabitants. And we are already seeing many of the serious effects of climate change that scientists have predicted, such as more intense heat waves, fires, longer periods of drought in some regions, an increase in duration and intensity of storms and hurricanes, melting glaciers, and sea level rise. Climate change affects everything from the balance of our ecosystems to our water and food sources, to species extinction, to geopolitics, to economies, to migration, to our infrastructure and supply chain. And most certainly, all of this affects our current and future health, well-being, and security. Luckily, a lot of innovations and technologies to help reverse the impact humans have made on our planet have been or are currently being developed. Like, for instance, recently we learned that scientists developed an enzyme that can break down plastic in a matter of days, far faster than the hundreds of years plastics usually takes to decompose. Other researchers are making progress on an innovation that would enable windows and cell phone screens to cultivate the sun's energy. So there's a lot of hope on the horizon, but none of these innovations have really gone global yet. And I know it can be overwhelming to bear witness to rapid changes that are happening now. And often we might wonder how we can personally, as an individual and collectively with our families, colleagues, and as a wider community, best contribute to reversing climate change. It's truly a global imperative that we realize that we can all make an impact on our climate emergency through our actions, as well as states of being that increase our awareness of unity consciousness and leads to collective wide-scale change. So today, while we will discuss some external technologies and innovations that play a role in reversing climate change, we will also focus on how we more consciously can utilize our vast inner technologies that we all innately have, like, for instance, our ability to engage in non-local communication with the elements. Our awareness, consciousness, and metaphysical capacities are becoming evolutionary choices in real time that can and do lead to climate solutions. And together, as a global community, we can reverse climate change. So we dedicate this program in great reverence to our beautiful, sacred planet Earth and all of the inhabitants that call it home. So now we'd like to hear from our speakers, and after we'll have a brief group dialogue and a closing meditation. So first, I'd like to introduce our first guests, Dr. James J. Hurtak, PhD, and Desiree Hurtak, PhD, who will be sharing in the next 10 minutes the state of the world in terms of local and global environments, as well as discuss some solutions that are technologically based with an emphasis on the importance of social consciousness ideas that can lead to climate solutions. And at the end, like I mentioned, they'll be co-leading a closing meditation. So Drs. Hurtak are authors, futurists, founders, and directors of the Academy for Future Science, UN NGO. They're speakers, they were speakers at the United Nations Rio+20 Conference on Sustainable Development in 2012, as well as presenters at the UN World Summit for Sustainable Development in Johannesburg in 2002, where we were there together. and at the United Nations Department for Public Information Annual Conference on Global Climate Change in New York in 2007. Dr. J.J. Hurtak has earned 2 PhDs, one from the University of California and one from the University of Minnesota. Together, they also have worked extensively in developing countries, finding ways to provide fresh water and improve health conditions in rural communities. They have also worked with indigenous cultures from the Zulus in South Africa to tribes in Brazil. Their award-winning films state that we are now at a tipping point. Everyone must seriously consider what is happening to Mother Earth. You can find more about their activities at futurescience.org. So, Drs. Hurtak, I'd like to pose 2 questions. So I'm just going to ask the 2 questions and then you'll have 10 minutes to answer. So your organization, the Academy for Future Science, has worked worldwide in environmental problem solving. How do you see this developing today? And the second question is, and more precisely, your work has always been on the cutting edge of future science. What alternative sustainable energies are on the horizon beyond what we are seeing now? And how do you see them making a real difference during these precarious times? And if there's anything else you think is significant to share during your 10 minutes, please do so.
Thank you, Diane. It's great. This is so important that people start realizing. We realized from this summer in Europe how hot things can really get, and that things are changing. We really can't put this aside any longer. So let's just get some basics out as well. We're talking about carbon dioxide. Well, it's now over 400 parts per million in our atmosphere, and that's pretty high. It hasn't been that high in about 800,000 years. And really, we could see an increase when we started working in industrial development. In addition to that, probably it's more like the Pliocene era, where that's 3 million years ago, where sea level rise was 30 feet higher than it is today. So there's a lot of stuff going on that really we're pushing the envelope. With the melting of more and more heat going into the atmosphere, you're getting pockets of methane in the Arctic that are releasing. Now, methane is more of a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So that's really causing a lot of problems. And all of this is still in our atmosphere. A lot of it is being absorbed by the oceans. And really, we're, in a sense, killing our oceans. We're killing the phytoplankton in the oceans. We're killing the coral reefs in the oceans. And this is really happening. I would say one other important thing to realize is the jet stream. And I believe some of this is all affected by the heat, by the currents in the waters, currents in the air. And the jet stream is what's happening this summer, that it's allowing heat from, we'll say, more of the equator to move into the northern hemisphere. So the northern hemisphere is getting warmer. The jet stream is really just flaking out, one could say. And then in the wintertime, what happens is the jet stream is allowing the cold Arctic air to come further south. So this is really the crux of what's affecting our planet. You know, the planet's going to survive. Mother Earth is just kicking back. And as you mentioned, there's flooding in some areas, fires in others. This is really her speaking out.
Right, Mother Earth is crying. We're not hearing her cry. And this has been echoed at the global summits and symposia that we've been involved with. We know tremendous amounts of plastic have been dumped into the ocean. A recent British report this year says that 90% of the phytoplankton have been destroyed. And of course, the food sources
in the north, yeah.
Yes, of the North Atlantic and other parts of the world mean ultimately the demise of the human community. Yet we have to be aware of what we're doing. For example, in the plastic that's being dumped into the ocean, over 10 billion pounds per year. And in mathematical assessments from remote sensing, we have over 15 trillion pieces of plastic. It's suggested by mid-century 2050 that there will be more pieces of plastic than fish in the ocean. So we have this technological drift towards self-destruction. We do not realize what we have done in the past, but there's room for improvement. And this is the bright side of consciousness connected with technology, connected with a proper futurism that can be in balance with the planetary environment.
And I have to say only about 9 to 10% of the plastics are actually being recycled. A lot of it ends up in garbage dumps or, as Dr. Hurtak mentioned, in the ocean.
In the North Pacific, we have the gyre has created an area as large as the state of Texas. So we have, again, these sore spots of Mother Earth, but also we have the healing strategies to overcome the mischief of a slow slide towards technical self-destruction.
And, unfortunately, we're being forced by many factors around the world, as well as the Russian cutoff of, we'll say, energy technology to Europe, as well as just what's happening here, that we haven't developed 30 to 40 years of environmental technology, sustainable development in energy technology. And it's sad because now all of a sudden we're supposed to have it, on our plates. We all need to move forward with this, but there's been a lot of positive things going on. There's something called bioelectric or technology or bio-rock, which they're actually putting electric currents, very low electric currents on coral type of reefs that are man-made. And this is really creating beautiful coral reefs being restored throughout, especially Indonesia and the South Pacific. But in addition to that, of course, we've always supported solar energy and hydrogen energy. But if you have solar and sometimes wind, you also need battery storage. And lithium is just not going to make it. It's expensive, it's short-lived, things like that. So there is some fabulous solutions, I believe, to every single thing that's going on in our environment. There are solutions.
In the 1980s, I was director of TMAC, Technology Marketing Analysis Corporation, and San Francisco had Glenn Seaborg on its board. We had the best minds from China, from Japan, from Germany. We were able to go to Russia and see the Tupolev planes being energized by liquid hydrogen. The fantastic developments that were available in the 1980s, however, were not supported by the other political administrations. And this is why we have fallen way behind the projections of alternative energies. Yet the Red Sea Renewable Energy Conferences were greatly enhanced by great minds throughout the world. And so we have a learning curve to catch up on very quickly.
So just a few factors of what solutions are. Well, we've looked and even compared Egypt to what's going on today. Ancient Egypt had these underground storage mechanisms. Well, also they're using that or looking at it at least for hydrogen storage of energy technologies, which is amazing. There's also salt water batteries. How common is that? Salt water with cotton is all you need for these battery storage systems.
Using ground penetrating radar, we were able to uncover in Egypt the fact that the Egyptians had these unique saltwater systems.
Anyway, in addition, there's also coming out of Finland, sand storage batteries. So you actually heat up the sand and it can hold the energy for months at a time. I mean, there's so many solutions. It's absolutely incredible. So that's part of what we're looking at completely. But I have to say, getting now back to what our real talk is about, it's about consciousness. As I said, Dr. Hurtak worked in the 70s with TMAC, and they had developed, because of tax cuts in California, a lot of the companies like Exxon and others, Chevron, were all putting money into renewables. Once that went away, things stopped. And so here we are, in the 21st century with really scrambling to try to make ends meet for energy technologies. But the Maasai and other indigenous cultures say, it's not just about the technology. It's not just about the problems with the planet. It's also about us.
We discovered in our work at Stanford Research Institute with Elizabeth Rauscher, over 1,000 pages of documentation show that consciousness is the hidden variable for great transitions that are being made. The indigenous people we work with, the shamans, the sociologists, showed that there was this greater power of the mind that's been overlooked. And I feel this is the hidden clue to a new consciousness physics of how we can utilize the human mind and body as a transducer with these energy currents in the universe, in the planetary environments.
And that's why it's important today that we do this meditation collectively, because we can literally empower other technologies to come forward. We can empower a reversal of climate change. We have a lot of power. The Maasai knew this. They were part of nature, and we are also part of nature. In fact, of course, one of the most famous, we'll say, quotes from the Maasai is, "We don't inherit the earth, We actually borrow it from our children.
And from the indigenous leaders like Orem Lyons, others, there was a realization that it is the attitude, is the projective of consciousness values that determine our priorities. And so the collective consciousness of Mother Earth is also speaking to us. And as we begin to assimilate the research that's been done at Stanford Research Institute and other think tanks, such as Novosibirsk, Dr. Kuznetsov of Russia, we realize that on both sides of the planet for the past 35 years, we've been working with the power of mind over matter. And we realize now that consciousness is behind both matter as well as mind. Both come out of matter as the basic matrix of life. And in the area of consciousness design, we will find the breakthroughs from the unhappiness, from the technical logic to that which is super consciousness. That is the great quest that's before us at this time. We are becoming universal humans, and we are realizing that there is a great leap that's ahead of us if we carefully interweave consciousness physics with the power of new technology and science. Future science is science guided by consciousness, and humanity must take that leap in using higher states of consciousness.
So thank you both so much for all the ways you have brought new future science into social, cultural, economic, and environmental spheres. We're so grateful. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce our next guest, Dr. Deepak Chopra, MD, who is the founder of the Chopra Foundation, a nonprofit entity for research on well-being and humanitarianism, and Chopra Global, a modern-day health company at the intersection of science and spirituality. Dr. Chopra is a world-renowned pioneer in integrative medicine and personal transformation. He is a clinical professor of family medicine and public health at the University of California, San Diego, and serves as a senior scientist with the Gallup organization. He is the author of over 90 books translated in over 43 languages, including numerous New York Times bestsellers. For the last 30 years, he has been at the forefront of the meditation revolution. And his 92nd book, Abundance, published by Harmony Books, provides an enlightening guide to success, fulfillment, wholeness, and plenty, offering practical advice on how to cultivate a sense of abundance in times of fear and insecurity. Wow, we really need that now. Time magazine has described Dr. Chopra as one of the top 100 heroes and icons of the century. Very well deserved. So you can read more about him at deepakchopra.com. So Deepak, I have two very broad but connected questions for you. The first is, how do we consciously reverse climate change? And the second is, what would it take to shift collective consciousness on this global concern? And anything else you feel inspired to do, if you want to do a practice meditation, up to you.
Thank you very much, Dan. That's great to be with all of you here, Doctors JJ and Desiree and Alan, yourself. And I learned a lot from the previous comments. As I was looking at my own notes, because I knew I was going to speak about this with you, the most effective ways to reverse climate change right now fall into 5 categories. The first is protecting coastal wetlands and also rainforests. And the reason is that coastal wetlands act as buffers to storms. They also act as very good water filtration systems. They are responsible for the regulation of the marine ecolife. And if you combine that with what's happening in rainforests, you can see that under the surface of the rainforest, under the surface, the ground, and in the marine life, is all the genetic information for life on this planet. Every possible species, even extinct species, our genetic information, which we now call the planetary microbiome, is right there. That's the gold mine. So if you protect coastal wetlands and our forests and go 1 inch below the soil, there is more genetic biodiversity than on the entire surface of the planet, including the rainforests. Those genes are responsible for all life that has existed on this planet up till now, including extinct species, dinosaurs, etc. I'll come back to this in a moment. So that's the first big idea that is coming through, the what I call emergence, when you get a maximum diversity of people with maximum talent, maximum understanding of science, but also storytellers and poets and entertainers and musicians. There's a new story to be told in just the resurrection of life on this planet. Why that is very important for climate change, I'll share with you in a moment. The second big movement in this whole field that I'm becoming aware of is sustainable agroforestry. So wherever there's agriculture, if you have forests at the same time, trees and other plants, including agricultural products which combine medicinal plants and resurrection of the planetary microbiome, agroforestry is the way of agriculture in the future, not just simple agriculture as we knew it. The third would be decentralizing energy distribution. I know we're talking about clean energy, which is very important, but unless it is decentralized and you have these big power plants and something happens to them, then the whole distribution is disrupted. But if you decentralize clean energy production, then even there are mishaps here and there, the whole system still remains viable. The fourth, already mentioned earlier, to secure the indigenous people's land rights, because indigenous people did see the biosphere as their extended body, and they did not have this separate idea, it's me and the universe. They saw the biosphere as their extended body, and that's where the real consciousness shift will happen. So supporting and securing indigenous people's rights. And the fifth would be to upgrade our mass transportation systems also. We don't need all these cars now with all these drones coming up and all these autonomous cars. I have an office in Lake Nona where everything is clean energy, everything is autonomous. The drones take you from your hotel to the terminal, and everything is done totally carbon neutral. But the idea that we have to get rid of personal transportation and go into mass transportation is a very big idea with the clean energy system. So those are the 5 things that I'm becoming very familiar with. Now, shift in consciousness is actually a revisiting of our vocabulary. I've always been intrigued by where did language come from? Did humans invent it, or is it part of the evolutionary process of evolution itself? Every culture has created language. They have similar terms or different terms, but the same experiences they describe. And, the more I think about language and how it shapes our reality, I think one of the problems with the whole climate change movement is that our vocabulary is one of separation. It's me and the world, instead of the deeper understanding, where did life come from? Where did the biosphere come from? So right now, as we're probing these distant galaxies with all these James Webb telescopes, etc., the current estimate is that there are 2 trillion galaxies, 2 trillion galaxies. There are 700 sextillion stars. There are uncountable trillions of planets, probably 60 billion habitable planets in just the Milky Way galaxy. And the way they come with these estimates is, these telescopes, they look for what is called the Goldilocks zone. If a planet is too close to its sun, then too hot, no life as we know it. If a planet is too far away from its sun, then too cold, no life as we know it. So it has to be within the Goldilocks zone. So the idea is If we can find the Goldilocks zone, then we can think that life as we know it is probably there. And there are 60 billion of these planets in just the Milky Way galaxy. Now multiply that by 2 trillion, our planet, about which we are concerned, and we should be. But, put it in perspective, it's not even 1 grain of sand in all the beaches of our planet Earth. The other day, I went to the beach to pick up 1 grain of sand and wouldn't stay on my hand. It would flow away with every little breeze. So if 1 planet out of 2 trillion galaxies disappears, it's probably good for the ecosystem of existence. If humans disappeared from this planet, life would flourish. If insect and bacteria and viruses and even COVID disappeared from this planet, life would stop in 5 years. So our genetic information of our body is less than 0.01% of what's required for life on this planet. So put that in perspective. But did the biosphere create life, or did life create biosphere? And what is life? So when you understand a deeper reality where the biosphere that we call the universe or our planet Earth, and the biosphere that we call our physical body or the body of all living animals, plants, genes, or bacteria, viruses, they're correlated activities. They're not separate activities. It's not that the biosphere created life or life created biosphere. They co-create each other in the same way as any entangled process. They're an entangled process. The biosphere did not create life. Life did not create the biosphere. They go together. And so once we make that shift in consciousness, we have to revise our language. Our language is alienating. The trees are our lungs. If they didn't breathe, we wouldn't breathe. If we didn't breathe, the trees wouldn't breathe. This air around us is our breath. The rivers and waters and oceans are our circulation. The earth is recycling as our body. The genes that we call our own, 99.9% of them are not human. So, when we have a personal body, and of course, the atoms, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, came from the stars. They came from this crucible of burning stars. And now we know that 50% of the atoms in our body are not even from the Milky Way galaxy. They come from other galaxies, and they're sucked into our galaxy by something called gravitational wind. So we have a personal body, we have a universal body, and they're both equally ours. So this whole idea that there's a climate, we have to reverse the climate change, we have to change the environment, it's alienating. We have a personal body and we have a universal body. We don't take care of our personal body, the universal body is disrupted. Same thing otherwise. We cannot, right now, this COVID sent a very good message to us. Very good. You can cut up the land artificially. You say, oh, this is Canada, this is Mexico, this is United States. You can even cut up the rivers. You can cut up airspace, but you cannot cut up the air. Okay. The other day I was walking in New York City with a mask on, and I smelled cigarette smoke. I said, wow, somebody is smoking a cigarette and molecules from their body are entering my body right now. Then immediately later, 5 minutes later, unfortunately, use not politically correct language, somebody had an explosion of intestinal gas, otherwise known as a fart. And I realized that I was inhaling the shit from him into my body. So we can't separate each other from each other. No matter what mask you wear, which plane you fly, we are totally entangled as life and consciousness. And what we do to the world, we do to ourselves. What we do to ourselves, we do to the world. We need a change in language. Language does not describe. Language conceives, constructs, governs, and become the reality that we experience. So that's my little spiel on this. We have practical ways, but we need to change our language so we feel an emotional and spiritual connection to our extended body, without which there's no personal body. And without the personal body, there's no extended body. And the personal body includes trees, plants, lungs, bacteria, viruses, and all the genetic information of the planet, you, me, dogs, cats, and maybe even the resurrection of extinct species. The technology is there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Deepak, for the 5 significant points and for reminding us to change our language. That's really key. And also for always reminding us that the key to climate change reversal is about the shift inside, especially the shift from separation to unity, and that all is interdependently co-arising. And if we resurrect the light of awareness in ourselves, we can return to the source. And this
In the
awareness
words of
can...
Thich Nhat Hanh, we are inter-beings that inter-arise in the inter-isness. There is only the inter-isness.
Well said. Thank you very much. And thank you for everything that you're doing to help us support the planet. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our next guest, Alan Seinfeld. Alan is an author, public speaker, television talk show host, and event coordinator. For the past 25 years, he has developed a unique brand of consciousness-raising activities under the umbrella of New Realities. You can find it on youtube.com/New Realities, which now has over 77,000 subscribers. And since 1995, he has conducted over 1,500 interviews with many leaders in the new consciousness field, including interviews with our distinguished guests, Deepak Chopra and Dr. James J. Hurtak and Desiree Hurtak, as well as Ram Dass, John Gray, Carolyn Mace, Lynn McTaggart, and Bruce Lipton. He wrote Careers in Alternative Medicine, published by Rosen Publishing as a part of the Young Adult Career Series, now in its 3rd edition. Quintessence, Multimedia Theater with Mark Mazon, a thesis on the overview of fractal evolution, and most recently, he wrote the best-selling book on Amazon, Making Contact, The New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence. He is very active in the disclosure movement, as he feels that only when the outer adventures of the mind meet the inner feelings of the heart can we achieve a harmonious world. Okay, so Alan, you have a successful New Realities YouTube channel. What types of new realities do you think we need to manifest into form to reverse climate change? And I know you also wanted to share with us your thoughts about the relationship between the body and the earth as vehicles for consciousness to take form. So my second question to you is, once this consciousness takes form, how do you see it helping to reverse climate change?
Well, thank you, Diane. It's great to be here with such friends and distinguished speakers in the field of consciousness. And I want to bring it back to some of what Deepak said about the earth and being part of that earth. And one thing Deepak also says is that everything is consciousness, but we also have to realize that this body we're in is an incarnation of consciousness in form. It's spirit in form. And we are walking around in these earth bodies as a piece of the earth. This is the earth. So I think one of the things I've done with New Realities is showing how caring for our bodies and the earth as an aspect of expression here of consciousness is very important to like the indigenous people, JJ and Desiree and Deepak mentioned, were aware of, that the earth is us. We are in the earth. So part of that is understanding that the earth is our mother. Like it's here to nourish us. It's here to take care of us. It's here to provide us experiences in this 3-dimensional realm. So the soul aspect of our being can then evolve into a greater understanding. So we have to respect the mother. We have to take care of the mother. And in that sense, it's also our child. This body as earth experience is something we have to make sure we don't poison, we don't neglect. We give it enough nourishment and sleep and food and clean water. So as we're all talking here, we can't exist without the earth, but the earth can't exist without us. But as represent earth in this form, it is our job, it's our mission to cherish this sacred experience of being embodied as incarnational beings in these earth suits. I mean, that is the key to understanding, I think, all spirituality, is to honor the embodiment, the incarnation. And we honor that by taking care of the form itself. So one of the things that have really influenced me in understanding this kind of sacred experience, the sacred gift that we've been given as spirit, as consciousness, is to, well, one of the books I've read is Carlos Castaneda, in his 4th book, Tales of Power, says that a person of knowledge bases their life on this, on their love for the earth, and this earth bestows on them its care. This is how your life can be filled to the brim, and wherever you go, it'll be plentiful, because this earth, for a person of true knowledge, there can be no greater love. For only if you love this earth with unbending passion can one be released from one's sadness. So a person of knowledge is always joyful, because their love is about the beloved, about the embodiment, about being informed to caretake this great being that we're a part of. And when we do that, this environment can bestow on us inconceivable gifts of experience. But we have to be in the awareness that like Deepak said, the earth is an extension of us, and we're an aspect of that. So this being of the earth is alive to its last resources and understands every feeling we have. And it cares for us, it soothes us, it cures us from its pain. And when we're really full up, it will release us, you know? And only with the love for the splendid being will we find freedom, efficiency, and abandonment in all odds. So I just want to talk about one experience I had during a rebirthing session when I went into a kind of deep, altered state, and I felt the earth talking to me. And the earth said it would gladly take back this piece of earth body, but its greatest destiny for us as human beings in these bodysuits is to make a piece of the earth a star. It's transmute the physical matter into a higher evolved process of light being, which means igniting the photonic potential in ourselves to access these other realities. But we only can do that when we're really complete and filled up with this earth experience. So that's a little metaphysics. I know that's a little out there, but we have a destiny, and the earth has a destiny for us. And it's to become the greater beings that can interface with all those billions of planets of consciousness that are out there waiting for us to resonate as a oneness of humanity with coherence. Bruce Lipton says, we are not humans until we create humanity. That's when we all realize we're one cell in this greater human superorganism. And when we come together as a oneness, as a wholeness, we will be able to relate to other onenesses that are a part of this cosmos to create the next level of superorganism. But we're not going to do that unless we care for the earth. We're not going to have visitors, like your mother used to say. You're not getting company until you clean up your mess. So we have to clean up our mess if we're really going to start to be making contact with these realms that are waiting for us to mature as caretakers of the physical realm. So we're really exciting times, because we are at the threshold of either going one way or the other, and it's up to everyone watching to know that our commitment is to life, to the earth, and to caretaking the nourishment that is offered to us so freely with water, air, food, and abundance. So let's nourish and cherish that as a sacred gift. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. That's beautiful, to ignite the photonic potential in ourselves. Is that what you said? And thank you for
a moment. Yes, go ahead.
JJ, who said that? Well, you repeated it and it was beautiful. So really, thank you for presenting so many new realities for us to explore over so many years. So we love you. Okay, so we have about less than 15 minutes left before our closing meditation. So let's have our deep dialogue. So I'm going to just ask one question to the four of you, and then if we have time, let's open it up to any questions you might wish to ask each other, or comment on something somebody previously shared. Okay, so Nikola Tesla once said, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all previous centuries of its existence." So an example of this could be non-local communication with the elements. For instance, Dr. Emoto, the Japanese scientist, I know you all heard of him, who revolutionized the idea that our thoughts and intentions impact the physical realm, saw water as a living consciousness and studied how the molecular structure in water transforms when it's exposed to human words, thoughts, sounds, and intentions. So his research also showed how polluted and toxic water, when exposed to uplifting words, prayers, and intention, can be altered and even restored. So water truly does have powerful messages for us, including how we can form a deeper relationship with an element like water that has consciousness and together participate in the healing of the planet. So I'd like to ask each of you, how do you see the study and use of non-physical phenomena and non-local communication making an impact on the healing of the biosphere?
If I can begin, this is a very important question because it's really the fulcrum of what direction we go in science and what I will call spiritual philosophy. Our work has shown that we are at a brink of understanding the cosmic potential is connected with the resource of inner consciousness. It's the inner consciousness collectively that opens, as it were, a whole new chapter of life, of connecting the human evolution, what I call the higher evolution, the intelligent life force in the greater universe with all its variations and biological diversity. And so we are here really beginning to understand the extensions of what, for example, John Mack and I and others saw with Curtin Witwa in South Africa, and the ability of the mind to communicate at distant relationships. It's the greatest breakthrough in science is the realization that non-locality, next to the splitting of the atom, proposes the best opportunity to harness the collective nature of the human mind, not only on a scientific level, but on a practical level, that rapid problem solving can reverse and even change some of the deterioration that has been, so we say, foisted upon us by science that is object-oriented rather than science that is human or consciousness-oriented. Consciousness must take central stage. And to answer your question complete, it is the science and the physics of consciousness that is the most enjoyable prospect that we face as a human society.
Right. So if we continue on with what Deepak was saying about the biology of life that exists on this planet, and ultimately, as Alan would say, throughout the universe, that's one aspect of it. And many people and many scientists have looked at the mathematics of it and the study of it and where the amino acids have come from. But we would say, going even beyond that, first and foremost, behind all of creation is actually consciousness. And this was understood also by the indigenous people. And the Maasai actually did feel that if something was going wrong in their community, that it had to do, they would sit down, they would meditate, they would figure out what was wrong, and they would work to correct it within themselves first and foremost. Now they realize that there's a larger influence, that they're actually struggling right now. Of course, in Kenya, Tanzania, these are the major areas that have experienced drought. But in addition to that, the whole idea of that consciousness can make a difference. We're out here right now in the Southwest, and the indigenous people always had their rain dance. And many people have gotten together oftentimes when we needed rain and did prayers. They don't have to do the old rain dance, although that probably works as well if we all knew it. But we do prayers and meditations. And rain has, this last year, if you looked at it, in northern Arizona, has been more abundant than even normal, which is fabulous. It's really incredible. But also the whole idea that we can make this difference of nature by bringing in this consciousness is key. We did the same with fire. There was a major fire and people were getting afraid. We said, look, push the rain, get the rain here, stop the fire. It happened. So I believe we can make a difference.
The bottom line is science has shown us that before the Big Bang, consciousness exists. And our understanding of the James Webb probe into the beginning of the universe, beginning to challenge, as it were, the concept of the Big Bang and say, well, there is something even greater that's at stake, and that is rediscovering ourselves within the conscious domain of the universal mind.
And empowering ourselves to help nature. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll jump in just to say, and I'll quote Deepak, because he says this at every interview I do with him. Consciousness is not in us. We are in consciousness. So we are in the consciousness field. We live in a non-local reality in a sense. And the illusion is that we're localized. So in a sense, though, we need a foot, I think, in both worlds. We need to know we're part of all existence and realize this, like I said before, this little piece of earth and the extensions of that need to be taken care of. So with the awareness that we're non-local, though, and I teach non-local awareness when I teach remote viewing, and most people can project their minds anywhere in the world because there really is no separation between any of it, because if it's all consciousness, it's all available to us right now. So remote viewing, which is non-local awareness, people get the targets. I say, okay, somebody is in this location. Can you name it? Can you describe it? And it happens. So if we can remote view, we can also remote influence, because that's consciousness is not just viewing. It's like quantum physics say, if you can see it, you can affect it. So if we remote view, if we can remote view the planet, if we could see the planet as a whole and emanate that love, that kindness, that thankfulness for being in these forms, we can actually affect the environment. I know Deepak's aware of the experiments that transcendental meditators did in high crime rates, where the group of them would come together and they would meditate, reach these high states, and it would have a quantum effect on the field. So if we realized how powerful we were as beings, locally and non-locally, it would certainly help transmute some of it. Of course, we have to do the hard work, stop filling up plastic bottles, doing all that. And being at one with the consciousness of this great being, the earth, we can also make tremendous changes. So we have a lot of exciting things to look forward to, and just be grateful for this miracle of incarnation in earth form. So that's part of it.
Thank you, Alan. Deepak?
I come back to the question of language right now. So, all our language is dualistic. But right now, if you look at the three ways that science is looking at reality, there is what we call material monism. Everything is matter. There is consciousness-only monism. There's only consciousness. And then there's dualism. There's mind and matter. Now, which goes back to Descartes. Dualism is out completely and totally, because it violates every law of physics. If you say mind and matter are two different things, then how do I move my arm? How do I move my vocal cords? What's the agency? What is the medium? What is the energy that mediates this? Without going into the scientific details, no one believes in dualism if they're keeping up with the literature in science. That leaves only two things: matter-only monism, which is all matter. Then, of course, that brings the hard problem of consciousness into question. How do molecules, atoms, force fields, and gravity create thoughts and feelings and emotions and images and creativity and insight and intuition and imagination and the desire for transcendence. How do atoms and molecules do that? Well, that's called the hard problem of consciousness. Furthermore, matter-only monism begins with the assumption that there is a physical substance called matter. Now, if you look at the nature of matter, you find that, in fact, most of the universe is not even atomic. The 0.1% or 0.01% of the 4% that's atomic, because most of it is invisible interstellar dust. The 2 trillion galaxies that we call atomic are made of particles. And when you're not looking at these particles, they disappear into mathematical space, or what is called Hilbert space. If you ask scientists, where is this space? They say, shut up and calculate. It's just this mathematical idea. Bottom line is, no one can prove the existence of a substance called matter. It's a very convenient word for an experience we have, which we call perception or perceptual activity. If you say I have a body, then which one are you talking about? You started as a fertilized egg, then you were a zygote, then you were an embryo, then you were a baby, then you were a toddler. There's no such thing as a body. It's a perceptual activity in consciousness that humans call my body. And even that is wrong, because every molecule in my body is the recycling of every other molecule in every other body. So, matter or the physical body or the physical universe are convenient words to describe perceptual activity in consciousness, which is a modified activity of consciousness. So if I asked you, what is this? You'd say it's a pen. What is this? You'd say spectacles. What is this? An iPhone. Very convenient constructs. But actually, this is a modality of awareness. The only way I know it is as texture, sensation, color, form, taste, smell, and noise. So this is a modality of awareness that human beings now have constructed called an iPhone or a spectacle. So the Vedantic and Kashmir and Buddhist traditions say when you see yourself in an object, that's called beauty. When you see yourself in a person or another living being, that's called love. And the combination of love, beauty is called Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, which is fundamental reality, only consciousness. So once we get that, only consciousness, then we can use these constructs, matter, to create technology, upgrade the illusion. If you ask, where is this experience occurring? If I hit my hand, where is the pain occurring? Somebody will say, here. You cut off the nerves, there's no pain here. Oh, it's in my brain. Well, there's no brain, there's no sound in the brain, there's no sensation in the brain. Cut a knife across the brain, put a knife, there's no experience in the brain. So where is this experience? This, or even this experience that we are having right now, where is it occurring? Some people would say it's in the computer. Others would say it's in the brain. Somebody would say, oh, I'm in New York, so it's happening in New York. But the only answer to this experience that is occurring right now, it's occurring in consciousness. And because consciousness has no form, it has no border, it is infinite, it is incomprehensible, it is irreducible, it is fundamental, it is without cause, it is not in space-time. All experience, including this, is non-local. So if you want to change the water molecule, stop calling it water. It's yourself pretending to be water or appearing as water. Once we get that, you see, because our language, we say we are non-dualist, but we use dualistic language all the time. So that is another major shift we need. Consciousness only. Mind is a convenient construct. You say, I have a mind. Which one? You had a teenager's mind. You have an emotion. Which one? You had an emotion of a baby once upon a time. You have a personality. Which one? You don't have a personality. You don't have a mind. You don't have a body. You have a consciousness that is modifying itself as display of the universe. And that's why it's so much fun. That's why it's so much joyful, because when you recognize you are the source of all experience in existence, including your own body, but all other bodies as well, including your mind, but all other minds as well, including your personality, but all other personalities as well, then we have the freedom to create what we want. Otherwise, we are bamboozled by these constructs that go back to the cognitive revolution 40,000 years ago. We haven't changed our tribal minds, but now we have modern capacities, and that spells extinction.
Wow. Thank you. Our new mantra is going to be consciousness only. Thank you. Thank you. Very powerful.
I just had
yes,
a question for
Alan,
Deepak. If
yeah.
we're consciousness and we're not changing, it's up to us to change, are you saying? We can't expect other people? I mean, what's the connection between the local and the non-local?
There is no local, Alan. Local is if I asked you right now, where are you? You'll say, I'm here. If you ask me, where are you? You'd point to me. But there's no me in here, and there's no little Deepak looking out of the brain at the world through here. The body is in consciousness. You are in consciousness. This computer is in consciousness, and my iPhone is in consciousness, and that's all there is. Once we get that, then there's only love, there's only beauty, and there's only joy, and there's only this.
So let us
Thank you so much.
let us do this meditation for the
yeah,
planet.
let's move.
It's fabulous.
Great. So let's do it. So Drs. Hurtak, Alan, Deepak, feel free to join. And this global
Yes, life is homo universalis, universal. And as we go from humankind to space kind, from the human evolution to the higher evolution, I would like us to concentrate on this picture we have from the Mayans of what is called Lady Cloth Weaver, showing the elements of the universe being interconnected with the human DNA, RNA. As we see the fabric of life around Mother Earth, we behold in majesty the different layers of color as we begin to think in technicolor. We behold the intricacies of the biophysics that connect with the astrophysics as we begin to use sacred geometry. And as we begin to feel from the four winds the excitement of life expanding through the context of a consciousness that is universal, we feel the spiritual unity of the greater I am that I am. Whether she, the universal, is the Divine Mother Durga, or in the Greek sense Sophia, we begin to see the changing of garments that are before us.
And so let us spread our consciousness out to one another and to all of Mother Earth, to all her life forms, to all the energy of the plants and those who swim in the oceans. Let us see the energy of love interpenetrating with one another, and let us feel what we are doing to each other so that we become more aware, not just from the I, but from the we. This is the consciousness field. We are part of the all, part of the oneness. And so send our energies out to clear the air, to help purify the waters, to allow the fire to do what is necessary, but not to destroy life beyond what it needs to be to grow and to nourish. And let us also honor Mother Earth in all her ways, in all her love, as we send energy out to each and all atoms and particles of the cosmic field that we are a part of.
Everything is vibrations, and as we invoke the cosmic mantras in Sanskrit and Hebrew and Tibetan and all the languages of Mother Earth, we begin to see the acoustical physics that reshapes lives, allows to change the garments of finite into the infinite way. We begin to see the cosmic I am working as a brilliant aspect of the divine within the human and the human within the divine dance.
Thank you. Deepak, will you like to add anything?
I would say a return to innocence is the only thing that's necessary. As Rumi said, replace your cleverness with bewilderment. And if you're bewildered, full of awe, wonder, playfulness, joy, innocence, love, compassion, equanimity, the way we were when we were babies, As Tagore said, every child that is born is proof that God has not yet given up on human beings. So I would just say, I pray for the return to innocence.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you so much, Deepak, JJ and Desiree, and Alan for an amazing program. Thanks to Garth for the technical support. And many thanks once again to all of you tuning in today. Let us remember that we all have an ability to imagine, create, and dream into form a new reality. Thank you very much.